What is up, ladies and gentlemen? I'm just a guy on my lunch break, aka Corey. It's about 12 o'clock on Tuesday. I did not post yesterday as I was off work, kind of recovering from a very long road trip that I made this weekend. If you've been following my channel for a while, watching my videos regularly, you know what road trip I'm talking about. To UFC 292 in Boston, Massachusetts. Made a couple of shorts about that, just so you guys could have just a tiny bit of the experience that I experienced there, which was just, it was mind-blowing. To see that, the way it went down, man, if you don't follow MMA, specifically UFC, is something that's very difficult to describe, being there live and in person. And my son and I, technically, we witnessed history last night. Sean OMalley won the bantamweight title in spectacular fashion, with a KO knockout over Aljamain Sterling. Well, why is this a big deal? I mean, the title changes hands all the time, right? Yeah, but Sean OMalley is also basically the next Conor McGregor, except the American version. And if you don't really watch MMA, you may not know that, but he's one of those guys that his name is becoming so huge in the sport that is starting to trickle out into the casual MMA crowd. What do I mean by casual? You got hardcore MMA fans who know all the fighters, all the low-level fighters, including all of the high-level fighters. And then you have casual fans who, they don't really know a lot about MMA, and they can throw out, you find a casual MMA fan, they might be able to throw out five names for you. I've had casual MMA fans say to me before, just as recently as a year or two ago, you know who I like? You know who I think's the best? Anderson Silva. And I was like, dude, Anderson Silva retired from MMA like 5 years ago. What are you talking about? He was, at one time, definitely considered the best in MMA, but I've had people say, is Conor fighting tonight? When I tell them I'm watching a UFC fight. And this was during the time where he was out with a broken leg from his leg being literally snapped in half. So you can always tell a casual MMA fan from an actual MMA fan. And Sean OMalley is one of those names that casual MMA fans are going to be pulling Sugar Sean OMalley out of their hat for years to come. They don't know a damn thing about the UFC and a damn thing about MMA, but that's how popular his name is becoming. And this is his first time. He had a really, really quick meteoric rise to the title. He's one of the most popular figures in the UFC, and this is his first time holding a belt in the UFC, and my son and I were there to witness it firsthand. And not only did we witness it, but we witnessed it in spectacular fashion. So anyway, I'm going to go in to a little bit of that. So Friday, I got off of work about 12. My son and I were able to leave and get on the road roughly, I would say it was between like 1:30 and 2 o'clock. That we finally got on the road and headed towards Boston. We made the trek all the way into Hartford, Connecticut that night. So we got a hotel right smack dab in the middle of Hartford, Connecticut. And we got there maybe, I would say, about 11 o'clock on Friday night. Checked into the hotel. We were just trying to hightail it there. We took some snacks with us, but we never really did stop and eat anywhere. So as soon as we got there, We checked into the hotel, left again, and went and got us something to eat really quickly. Slept for a few hours. By about 8 o'clock or 7:30, 8 o'clock, we were up, getting our stuff ready, ready to make the rest of the drive into Boston. At that point, we were only about 2.5 hours from Boston, and I was trying to make it that way. I was trying to make it to where when we got up on Saturday morning, we had already done most of the drive, so that we kind of had a short go of it on Saturday. That way we were able to get there, be there, you know, kind of early, go look at the city a little bit, enjoy the city, just, you know, look at the fight scene. And, you know, because there's all these, not only posters, but billboards and stuff like that all over the place of, you know, the huge fight that was happening on Saturday night. So we got up, made it into Boston. We got into Boston, I would say about 12:30, 12:45, somewhere around in there. We parked. We were able to park at a location that was pretty close to the hotel we were staying at. We were staying at a very nice historical hotel called the Indigo, and it was very expensive, but, you know, I give thanks to my wife for really taking care of that for us. She's the one that booked it for us. She wanted us to really be very close to the arena. In other words, walking distance. She didn't want us to have to take an Uber to the arena. She didn't want us to have to get our car out of parking and go somewhere and pay for parking, and she didn't want us to have to do all that. So she got us a hotel room that was literally, when I say you walk out of our hotel room, walk about 30 feet, there's the main strip in Boston. You walk across that road, look to your right, and the TD Arena, which is where the fight was being held, was literally probably 50 yards. So when we are in our hotel room, you could look out the windows of our hotel room, look to your right, and there's the TD Arena. You could see it. It was right there. So that was a really cool and awesome experience to be that close to it. You know, for it to be one of those things where we didn't have to worry about getting in, getting out with our vehicle, and just, you know, when you got 20,000 people who have flocked to one city, right, to see an event like that, getting out in a vehicle is just not something that you want to do. So the fact that we were able to get a hotel so close to the arena like that was really an awesome experience. One cool experience that we had that I wanted to share, and this happened almost as soon as we got there. So we get there, we find a parking space in one of these parking lots that, you know, somebody owns it, owns the parking lot. And basically we told him we were there for the fight. He's like, okay. So we told him we were staying at the Indigo Hotel. He was like, the Indigo Hotel, they own their own parking, but it's $66 for parking for you to be there up until, you know, whenever you check out the following day. He said, what time will you be here until tomorrow? I said, well, we'll be here for the fight. We'll be parked there all night, and then we'll probably be leaving, trying to get on the road at about 8:30, maybe 9 at the latest in the morning. And he was like, no problem. He was like, you pay here, you pay me $60, you can keep your car here all night, and you don't have to move it. And we didn't want to have to move it, you know. And plus, seeing as how close the arena was to us, that was a perfect scenario. So we parked the car, got out, we walked down. Well, first thing we did before we checked into the hotel was walk down on the street, just getting eyes on the arena, make sure that we knew where the arena was and all that stuff. We walked out there, we started walking back. We got about 50 feet from the parking lot where we had parked, and we see this group of people walk out, and almost every one of them have green shirts because we're in Boston, right? And the name O'Malley is synonymous with Boston and Irish. right? You got Boston and the Irish culture, they're kind of, you know, synonymous. I mean, we knew that. Boston Celtic, you know, that sort of thing. So we see all these people with these green shirts on, and we hear it's probably about 5 or 6 people, a few men, a couple of women, and we hear one of them say Sugar Show. And so my son had some Sugar Sean O'Malley merchandise on. He had a sweatshirt that, you know, was Sugar Show sweatshirt. And we heard one of them say that, and we were like, yeah, let's go. And I kind of walk up, you know, give the guy a pound, like, let's go, Sugar Sean, we'll pull him for him, you know, this and that and the other, really hoping, talked a little bit about how I felt like he could win the fight, you know, hopefully he can stay off the mat, because Aljamain Sterling is known as a wrestler, a grappler, and that's kind of how he usually beats his opponents. They call him the human backpack because he grapples, he gets the guys on the mat and usually takes their back, and then it's really hard for guys to get up from that. That's how he ends up winning a lot of his fights. So we talked about that a little bit, and the guy reaches over, the guy kind of leans over to him, he's like, that's his dad, that's his brother. And we were like, and I look over, and about that time the gentleman turns around, it's Sean O'Malley's father. It's Sean O'Malley's father. We were like, whoa, that's crazy. And how did I know this? It's interesting because as a casual fan, I probably wouldn't have known this. But they have these, when a huge UFC's coming like this, they have these things called the embedded episode. You know, it's where a camera crew travels around and they follow the fighters, you know, like in their hometown. They follow them, you know, just kind of tell a little bit about their lives, their training schedules. They follow them into their training camps and into their gyms, interview them a little bit. They'll interview their coaches. A lot of times they'll travel into their personal lives. There's times where they'll interview their parents, loved ones, you know, all these different things. It's called an embedded episode. And a couple of weeks ago, my son and I, as soon as we found out we were going to this fight, we watched some of the embedded episodes. And they happened to be interviewing Sean O'Malley's father on this embedded episode. And apparently he's not a martial artist per se himself, but he's an MMA enthusiast, which is kind of what, you know, I consider myself to be. I do train in it a little bit, but mostly I'm just an MMA enthusiast. Like, I love MMA and always have. And there he was. There's Sean O'Malley's father standing right in front of us. You know, one of the biggest names in the UFC. There's his father standing right there in front of us. And I recognize the brother too, because Sean O'Malley has a podcast called the OMalley Show that he does with his brother. So it's very, very interesting. We just happened to see them right there, and we actually ended up seeing him a couple of more times as well. And we got a picture with him. He was a very, very nice man. Really, really cool to meet him. We actually got a picture with him. I'll probably make that. I might make that as my thumbnail, just because I'm super proud of that. And now I met Sean O'Malley's dad. But anyway, long story short, that's one of the first things that happened as soon as we get into the city. So immediately we're like, "Oh, this is awesome!" We run into Sean O'Malley's dad. That's cool as hell. Yeah, that's awesome. So we hang out in the city for a while. You know, just kind of looking around, seeing what all's there. We walked down, looked at the water. We were kind of close to, you know, the coast and the inlets and stuff like that. We walked by but did not go in the Boston Museum. It's really a cool place. It's one of those places that's kind of a cross between like New York and then Maine. You know, it's not quite as thick city. It's a lot, well, I hate to say this, I don't want to piss off any New Yorkers, but it's a little cleaner than New York is. But you know, it's one of those things that it still gives you that big city sort of feel, you know. And there was a guy on the street playing drums using like the those plastic like 10-gallon buckets and some pans, and he's playing and playing and playing. I mean, the dude, you could tell this dude was a sick drummer. I mean, it sounded like a band. You know, we hear it from around the corner. We're like, wow, who's this? You know, we're thinking there's some drummer over there just getting it in the street. And we walk around the corner and it's a guy with, you know, several plastic 10-gallon buckets and some pans that were beat all to hell from where he's beating on them and stuff like that. And you know, of course, people are throwing in money on the streets, and there's people out there dancing. It's just a really cool experience. Lots of indoor markets, things like that. Really cool architecture, places to get good pictures, things like that. And so the fight. So we go to the fight that night. And really, I mean, the only fight I really have to talk about is the main one. I mean, there were some other good fights in there, but it's one of those where, you know, if you're tuned into my channel, you're not tuned in because you're a hardcore MMA fan. Now, I do know that there are some people that watch my channel that are MMA fans. So you few guys would know what I'm talking about, but I do. It's, you know, this isn't an MMA channel, so a lot of you guys are going to be like, well, you know, if I start talking about all the other fights and everything. But the main fight was crazy. The fight ended in the second round. Sean O'Malley was definitely the underdog in this matchup. I'm not sure exactly what the betting odds, what the odds were in terms of him being an underdog, but he definitely was an underdog. Everyone was expecting Aljamain Sterling to win this fight, to take Sean O'Malley down, grapple him the whole time. Sean O'Malley is predominantly a striker. Not that he can't grapple. He has a lot of jiu-jitsu skills, and he's very well trained in that. But predominantly what he does and what makes him his most dangerous and where he prefers to fight is on his feet, because he's a very talented striker. The first round was pretty good, but after the first round was over, I was feeling pretty hopeful, because Aljamain did try to take Sean O'Malley down. He was not able to take him down. Sean O'Malley was able to stay on his feet, and you know, first thing I thought was, this is a good sign, because we get on into this fight and Sterling is not able to take O'Malley down. I kind of knew where this fight was going to end up going and what the outcome was going to end up being, because Sean O'Malley is just a very, very elusive, very, very fast, and very, very accurate, talented striker. And Aljo is not that. Aljo's not bad, but that's not his strength. You know, his strength is the grappling, the wrestling, being able to take guys' backs, control them on the ground, and kind of win the fight by measure of either controlling them or getting them on the ground, getting them tired, so when they stand back up, their arms are filled with blood, they can barely swing and lift their arms, or just grappling them to a point where they finally just make a mistake, they leave an arm out, leave their neck exposed, and then he'll submit them, right? That's kind of Aljo's game. That's what has taken him all the way to the top. So I knew that if he wasn't able to get O'Malley down, that it was only going to be a matter of time where he walked into something or he ran onto something. Sure enough, a little ways into the second round, Sterling kind of starts to pressure O'Malley a little bit, stepping forward. It looked like he was, you know, he threw it right, but it looked like he threw it in hopes of, because Aljamain will do this thing, he'll hide his takedown behind punches. A lot of wrestlers do this, a lot of grapplers do this. They'll throw something out there, not necessarily intended to land, but they're going to throw it, get their opponent covering up like this, and then when their opponent covers up, they duck under and grab them and take them down to the mat. And it's kind of a technique that a lot of grapplers use. And so he did that. Instead of covering up and staying in one place, O'Malley did an awesome job of stepping out of the way. He slipped the punch by about this much. Literally, Aljo's fist was right here. He slipped it boom, right hand, right on the jaw. Aljo goes down. It wasn't a full, complete knockout. It was kind of like a flash knockout. It was one of those where it knocked him out. He went down, but by the time he hit the mat, he was kind of like, oh, what happened? He kind of came to as he hit the mat. But of course, he was still shaken up. He was still rocked. OMalley jumped on top of him and, started throwing some punches. Eventually, after a few seconds, he did land another good one that kind of, rocked him again a little bit. Aljo turned over on his belly, looking like he was about to try to get up. The ref jumped in and stopped it. A lot of people were like, oh, he stopped it too early, But it's one of those where nobody really complained because he wasn't like completely out of it, but he was definitely hurt. You could tell that he was hurt. And especially when you turn over on your belly like that and you got a guy like OMalley on your back looking to finish it, standing over top of you, the ref didn't want him to take any more punishment. So he ultimately stepped in, jumped in, and stopped the fight. So, yeah, man, it was good. It was really good. I enjoyed the time with my son. It was a great, great time. It's something that I'll always remember. We got a lot of good pictures, had a lot of good times, a lot of good conversation up there and back. I'm in the car with my son for a good 24 hours straight, so we had the time to talk about a lot of different things, and it was just a really, really good, one of the best bonding experiences that I've ever had with my son, and I'm really, really happy about that. So a lot of people were probably like, dude, 22 minutes of talking about UFC. I didn't subscribe to your channel to listen to UFC commentating. I subscribe to your channel because you talk about kratom. You talk about coming off of kratom or using kratom or addiction or this and that and the other. So a lot of you guys want to hear that. So just to cut to the chase, did I use kratom this weekend? I used kratom this weekend. Of course I used kratom this weekend. I told you guys I was going to use kratom this weekend. Was it worth it? Do I regret having used kratom this weekend? Man, that's a very, very, very loaded question. One that I'm almost not sure how to answer. Partly because I am cursed with transparency and honesty, on this channel. And I think it's because of that I almost have 400 subscribers now. I lost a few subscribers last week. I made a video about this. I lost a few subscribers when I, went and told everybody, hey, I'm probably going to use kratom this weekend. If you're in this for long-term sobriety, long-term recovery, and you see this as this channel as being something that you're disappointed because I said I was going to use it and you want to unsubscribe, I had that whole video about that, and I actually did have a few people to unsubscribe. But I mean, it is what it is, and I would rather be honest, and I would rather you guys see the turmoil and the ups and the downs and the ups and the downs and the ups and the downs of drug use or drug abuse or substance abuse or kratom use or kratom abuse, whatever you want to call it. I would rather you guys see all that for what it is. And unfortunately with that, for me, comes some judgment, and it comes with people saying, man, I told you, and I'm sure I'll get that. I'm sure I'll get that. And that's fine. That's okay. That's in many ways kind of my cross to bear when I began to do a channel like this. Recovery, substance abuse, addict behavior, abstaining or not abstaining, those things can be, people can be just as opinionated on those things as they are on religion or politics. You know how you say you never talk politics or religion with people, or especially with family members or whatever the case, because it's something that people feel so strongly and so passionate about. Drug addiction's the same way. It's the same way in a lot of ways. And you get a set of people who, depending on where they are with it, kind of like, oh, it's no big deal. Do you? That's you. That's for you to figure out. That's for you. And then you have a group of people that almost get mad at you for not coming on here and preaching what they personally believe. Whether that's long-term recovery, going to meetings, going to NA meetings, AA meetings, whatever it is, jumping into the Bible, Jesus. I've had people say that to me. And I'll get to that. It's not that I necessarily agree with those things, or it's not that I necessarily disagree with those things, but I'll talk a little bit more about that. So this weekend was definitely kind of like a bender for me. It was a bender. I did take some kratom, and this is interesting. I'm not sure if any of you guys knew this, but marijuana is actually legal in Boston. Okay, and I did one video where these glasses, which they're kind of light glasses, but I had these glasses on when I was in the arena, which we were walking around Boston all day long, right? And I go into the arena, my wife's not with me, it's just me and my son. I've got a pair of jeans and a UFC shirt on and a hat. I didn't want to set my glasses down anywhere. I was wearing skinny jeans. I didn't really have anywhere to put them, right? And I was also concerned because I was getting up and down a lot. I was also concerned about just leaving them like on my shirt, so I just kind of kept them on for that. And because literally right beside my hotel, there was one of those, I guess you call it like a dispensary, like a weed dispensary sort of thing. Literally right beside my hotel, right? I'm from North Carolina. It's still illegal here. I mean, it's not a criminal charge, but it's still illegal in my state. This is my first time going to a state where you can go into a marijuana shop, show them your ID, okay, you're 21, and you can go in there and buy like a little disposable, marijuana cartridge, and you can walk around on the street just puffing a marijuana cartridge. And I actually did not know that it was legal there until we were there for about 2 hours. And we were walking around all through the streets, and I'm telling you, during that first 2 hours that I was there was probably 10 different times where I would walk by a crowd of people and was like, wow, like people are just blatant about that shit here. Like I can't tell you how many times I smelled marijuana, right? And so I'm thinking it's just a bunch of young kids just being out on the street, being idiotic. Oh, if we all do it, they can't catch but so many of us. No, it's not the case. It's actually legal there, to the point where they have dispensaries. And so, I've never been in a situation where you can legally walk around smoking marijuana. And this is not strong. These little vapes are not very strong. It's one of those things where you can puff on it multiple times back to back, and you feel a little bit, but it's not like, you know, blow your head off sort of really, really strong kush, you know, that you might get illegally somewhere. It's more regulated, if that makes sense. So I guess the amount of THC that you're getting in each hit is, you know, significantly smaller, right? And so I got one of those. And in the like I said, I didn't have to drive. You know, the arena was right across the street from my hotel. So I also was able to go, and I got a couple of drinks, you know, so I didn't do a lot of anything, but I did a little bit of a few things. And I had fun, and I had a great time. You know, and it's one of those where, do I regret it? It's hard to say I regret it. There are two answers to that. Okay? I can't say I regret it, because I do feel like that it helped me to have a better time when I was there. Helped me to have a more fun time. Be more open, kind of lower my inhibitions, and just, you know, woo, let's go. You know, we're in Boston. This is a crazy experience, blah, blah, blah. You know, it kind of helped me to have more fun in that way. But, with that said, going on a several day bender like that, and then coming back, the reality of what you've done. And listen, how do I say this? So if you're an addict, and if you are a person who abuses substances, right? And you realize that, when you go back there and you abuse them again, you kind of have the inability to abuse them again and not somewhat regret it, and not somewhat feel bad about yourself, you know, or feel a little lower, or kind of disappointed in yourself. Does that make sense? And, you know, if you say I told you so, and if you jump in my comments and say I told you so, I'm not going to respond. I won't be responding to that, because I'm 47 years old. I knew I was going to regret it. I knew it. You know, I knew that I was going to go. It was going to be fun. I was going to be like, woohoo, have a good time. And then afterwards, I was going to be like, you know,